Cowboys Nation, your boy Mike Tag here. Just again, one real quick. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, share, spread the word, all that kind of good stuff. Got to get better at advertising it. But hey, just wanted to drop a video. Darren Woodson, semifinalist for the Hall of Fame. This isn't the first time. It's been a long time coming, and he's always seems to get to that semifinalist and gets down to the bottom, but doesn't really seem to make it yet. So just wondering, is this the year finally Darren Woodson gets his due and gets in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? And what a fitting year it would be. You get Jimmy Johnson in there. You had DeMarcus Ware gets put in last year, and then obviously in the Ring of Honor and all that kind of good stuff. And Chuck Howley finally gets in. So it would be really nice to get Darren Woodson in there. He's one of the guys from the 90s. If you're too young, because they say, hey, man, they hadn't won a Super Bowl in so long. I was around in that era. I was much younger, but Darren Woodson was always one of my favorite players. I had a Darren Woodson jersey, and there weren't a ton of them. It was always Emmett, Aikman, and Irvin, obviously. But I found it was a little too big, but I finally found a Darren Woodson jersey, and always wore that. He was just one of those guys. So just want to talk a little bit about his career, and then I have a really cool clip. We interviewed Dave Campo last season, and we talked about Darren Woodson, and he found him. He scouted him. Was actually going to look at a different player, Philippi Sparks, a cornerback. And here's this guy, Darren Woodson, who's a linebacker, just blazing speed. Like, hey, maybe we'll make him into a safety, and just really talk about his character and the type of player he was. So want to share that with you as well. So hang with me, and we'll be playing that at the end. It's about 4 minutes, so it's a quick clip, but it's well worth it. If you don't know Darren Woodson, or if you just want to relive some of the stuff he did, it's awesome. But looking at Darren Woodson, you can only do the comparison, right? So you compare him with some of the like guys in his era that are in the Hall of Fame. So you saw, Leroy Butler get put in for the Packers. You saw John Lynch get put in for the Buccaneers, and obviously finished career at the Broncos. Darren Woodson was a little bit different than both of them. He was a guy that, we talked about it with Coach Campo. He was kind of ahead of his time. He had blazing speed. He could play the nickel, or now you have cornerbacks playing the nickel. He was a safety playing nickel. He was covering Jerry Rice sometimes. He was covering, slot receivers, and he was able to do it. Obviously could cover tight ends like no other. So he was just a very unique guy. The numbers, again, they're not off the charts when you look at what's kind of like some of the safeties. You take like an Ed Reed or Palomalu, and you look at all those interceptions. He wasn't really that kind of guy, but he was one that can stop the run. He's the all-time leader in Cowboys history in tackles, and that's got to say something. But if you look at his stats and you kind of like look where, compare him to John Lynch. John Lynch played more games. I mean, 224 games, 178. John Lynch, I was surprised, only had 3 more interceptions than Darren Woodson. Darren Woodson had 23 interceptions in his career. The tackling, very similar. Darren Woodson's probably a little higher when you look at the average per year. I think he's almost doubled what John Lynch was average per game. And then forced fumbles, Lynch had 16, Woodson 12. Fumble recoveries, Woodson had more than John Lynch. But again, John Lynch played, almost 50 more games, 50 plus more games than Darren Woodson. Darren Woodson, 3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. John Lynch, 9-time Pro Bowl. But we know Pro Bowls kind of, as the years went on, they kind of got, watered down. But John Lynch has 4 All-Pros, so got to give him that. But again, he played a lot more years than Darren Woodson. And Darren Woodson, unfortunately, was in that run with the Cowboys, but he was on some bad Cowboy teams during that transition. So unfortunately, when you're on bad teams, you don't get a lot of the recognition that you think you should get or deserve. But 3-time Super Bowl champion to 1. So that's one of the guys that you can kind of compare him to, who recently got put in the Hall of Fame. And now you look at like a Leroy Butler. Leroy Butler, 1 Super Bowl. Obviously, Woodson, we said, had 3 Pro Bowls. Darren Woodson had 1 more than him. all pros. Leroy Butler had one more than him. Well, Leroy Butler, one of the things he was kind of that ball hawk and safety. He had a lot of interceptions, 38 interceptions. Obviously, that's a lot more than Darren Woodson. When it came to the tackles, Darren Woodson was more at the line of scrimmage. Sacks, Leroy Butler came off the edge a lot more sometimes on safety blitzes. He had 20.5 sacks compared to 11 sacks for Woodson. He never really kind of was that, wasn't the kind of player he was. Like I said, he was one of those guys that just, he was ahead of his time. So he was almost a cornerback and a linebacker. He was kind of a hybrid. But comparable numbers. I watched both of those guys play, different players. I don't want to say one's better than the other. I mean, all those guys I mentioned are deserving to be in the Hall of Fame. But if you got John Lynch in there and you got Leroy Butler, you better have Darren Woodson in there. Darren Woodson needs to be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm hoping they get it right. I'm hoping this is the year, because I've never been to the Hall of Fame. And I missed Emmett. I missed, Aikman. I missed Irvin. I missed Haley. I missed Jimmy Johnson. And kind of regret that. And I would love, I missed all the 90s guys. So I'd love to see a 90s guy in the Hall of Fame, see him get inducted. So Darren Woodson's my last hope. So I'm hoping he gets in really soon, because I'd love to go to Canton next year and make a little trip out of it. So I'm hoping they finally do the right thing. I mean, he's in the Cowboys Ring of Honor. We all know how hard that is. I mean, there's only 22, soon to be 23 guys in the Ring of Honor with Jimmy Johnson finally going in. But that's going to be a special night. Your boy's going to not miss that. So just want to also, I'm going to end this with a clip. This is a clip of Dave Campo that was on our show. And if you've missed this interview, go back and watch it. I mean, the stories with Jimmy Johnson, and we'll probably cut some more stuff up with Jimmy Johnson getting put in the Ring of Honor. But the stories he had with the 90s, absolutely. Dave Campo was there through it all. 18 years as a coach. He was there after the transition with Jimmy Johnson. And then obviously was head coach and kind of was given a very bad team to work with. So I felt bad for him. He gets a lot of heat for it. But, I mean, go look at his quarterbacks that he had. You wonder how the hell he could win 5 games. So just a great coach, great guy, a lot of energy and a lot of fun. And from the youth, so that always helps. But if you missed that interview, you can go back into our playlist. You can go look at all the interviews. We've done interviews with Bob Lilly, Mr. Cowboy. We've done interviews with Moose Johnston, Brad Johnson. We've done, obviously, Barry Switzer, and the list goes on and on, Defender of the Star, George Teague. So we've done a lot of great interviews. So if you're new to the channel, definitely love the support. Go check out some of the other interviews. And we are live. We'll be live on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. Kelly and I will get ready for this Thursday night game versus Seattle. Could be jumping on that Learjet and touching down tomorrow afternoon. So here's a clip of Dave Campo talking about Darren Woodson and leaving the comments. I mean, it's about time this guy gets in there, especially if you're from that era. You'd love it. So I appreciate it. Here's the clip from Dave Campo.
As far as my favorite player, I have to say Darren Woodson.
Yeah.
Darren is the guy that I had a charity foundation in Connecticut for like 10 years, and we grandfathered a bunch of scholarships to kids and stuff. And Darren was actually my host. He and I did it together. Mm-hmm. And so I spent a lot of time with Darren on and off the field. Yeah. And I'm the guy that scouted him. I went out to Arizona. I was going out to see Philippi Sparks.
Oh, yeah.
Philippi was playing at Arizona State, and he was going to be a top 3 or 4 round guy. And so I went out to see him, and, we had 5 or 6 guys on the list, and Woodson was one of them. He was a weak side outside linebacker. And when you go to those workouts, they're usually in the afternoon, and they set up a room for the scouts and any coaches that come in, and they just run tape in the morning. So I got there early. I'm sitting there watching game tape of everybody, and a couple of scouts up in front of me from different teams. One guy says, geez, I don't know about that Woodson guy. He runs all over the place, but he's not hitting anybody. And that was because he was a weak side linebacker. Everybody was running strong side because the team was good, and guys were making plays. He'd get over there, but he didn't have to make any plays, right? So we go out to the field, and it's a 40-yard dash. And Jimmy had told us that was the year Jimmy had said, with the NFC East, we need a strong safety. We need a big, strong safety that can run and hit. So I'm standing at the 40-yard dash line, and he blows out a 4.35 40 at 6'1.5", 6'2", about 220. I looked at that and I said, okay, we're working him out as a DB. And I worked him out as a DB. Athletically, he had it all. So I go back, you know, footwork wise, everything. So I go back and I tell Jimmy, you know, this guy we might hit with this guy. This guy could be I don't know. I know one thing for sure. He'll start on every special team, and he'll start at nickel for us because the kid's big and fast. And that's a position he basically played. It was a weak side outside linebacker. So draft day gets there. Jimmy calls me in and he says, all right, tell me about this Woodson kid again. So I go through the whole thing. I'm thinking he's going to take him in the 3rd or the 4th round. He takes him at the top of the 2nd round. And the rest is history. Yeah. The one thing I told him, though, was I don't know if he's going to be a big interceptor because he's never been back there. You know, I don't know. You know, he'll be a safety, but I don't know about the ball skills and all that. And come to find out, probably the reason he's not in the Hall of Fame is because he didn't have a ton of interceptions. But boy, he had a bunch of tackles and covered a lot of people and a lot of knockdown passes. And you know, he's just a great player. But a good kid. You know, he came from one of the toughest areas of Phoenix, and most of his friends are either in jail or dead.
Wow. Yeah. And he's a great, I mean, I met him once, but he's just such a humble, great character. And really, he was ahead of his time in his position, you know, because of the speed, like you said. I mean, that wasn't normal. And I don't understand how he's not in the Hall of Fame. You know, and I hate to compare, you know, players, but I think John Lynch is, you know, obviously he's a great player, and Leroy, you know, Butler's a great player, but I would put Darren Woodson, you know, at their level or higher without any hesitation. And I just don't know why he has not. And I think it's that safety thing, right? They're never big on putting safeties in the Hall of Fame. They make
that's not a big position, and he, you know, statistics are big. Those guys. You know, those guys that are making a decision on that stuff, a lot of them have never seen the guy play. They're looking at statistics and, you know, he leads. He's the all-time leading tackler in Cowboy history over Leroy Jordan.
And that says a lot. Leroy Jordan had a long time.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good stat.
That clip with Coach Campo sharing stories about Darren Woodson. I mean, Campo, that, you know, got to get a lot of thanks for Campo for you know, going to look for Philippi Sparks, but seeing Darren Woodson and pushing Jimmy to make sure he gets drafted and he's a Cowboy. So it was great memory. Love having it. Appreciate you guys watching the video. Hopefully this is the year Darren Woodson finally gets into the Hall of Fame where he belongs, and it'll just be another Cowboy in there, 3-time Super Bowl champion. I mean, we need more representation from that era in the Hall of Fame, and he's probably one of the last ones that have a legit shot. I think Daryl Johnson, who was on the show, I think he's another one that should get some recognition for it. So hopefully he might be next down the line, you know, way down the line of veteran, because he changed the fullback position. They created a Pro Bowl and everything else for the fullback. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, share. Hopefully we'll see you. If you're watching us today, you'll see us Wednesday night live in the cave. Kelly K9 and I, we've got a couple special things that we're going to drop. So definitely hope to see you there. You guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon.